What's up, everybody? Is this the best coaching job by John Calipari in his 33 years of coaching? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. In today's episode, brought to you by TurboTax. If you're ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed, head over to turbotax.com today and get matched with your expert. All right, we got to dive into what is happening in the SEC tournament, and we got to start with the Arkansas Razorbacks and survive and advance for Arkansas, a game where the Hogs imposed their dominance very early over South Carolina, jumped out to a 47-30 halftime lead, but they hung on for dear life at the end to get a 72-68 win. But they found a way to win. Winning ugly is still a win, and that's all that matters in March. And John Calipari, he has now won 3 in a row, 5 of their last 6, and since that 0-5 start in the conference, Arkansas is 9-5 in the best conference in the nation. As for the game, Razorbacks, they had one of their worst drives of the season. They went more than 11 minutes without a made field goal at one point. In total, Arkansas missed 12 consecutive shots from the field as South Carolina fought their way back into the game. Carolina trimmed that deficit from 18 points down to 1, but they got the win. Arkansas still continued to figure out how they want to play without Adu Thiero, who missed the game with an injury. He's been Arkansas's most consistent offensive player, so they've had to adjust. And in this game, Arkansas had great performances from Ferran Brazil, Jonas Adu, and Arkansas went 15 of 16 at the foul line. Very uncharacteristic of a John Calipari team, making their free throws when they needed them. But with just a 3-point lead, it seemed odd to many. The Razorbacks would do anything but try and make the shot for a 4-point cushion. But after the game, John Calipari was asked about the decision to tell his player to miss the free throw. He said, with 2 seconds left, I said, miss it. The best they can do is just throw it deep. I've done that before. It's kind of like being up 6 and fouling, more possessions. But the end result, what if they throw it in, throw it deep, bank in one, and we lose? So really happy the free throw went in. That's what I told them. So not the conventional end to a game, but it worked out for Arkansas. And look, now the win gives Arkansas a 20-win season, ups their record in the conference to 9-10, and what most people have said is the best conference in the nation. And it seems like they have punched their ticket. So Aaron Torres, who covers college basketball, said the Hogs were in the tournament today, barring bid stealing insanity, despite the narrative many tried to push, but now they are officially in, simply playing for seeding at this point. Calipari saying after the game, let me tell you this, whether it was individual players who were in a dark place, whether it was our team starting 0-5, whether it was injuries, these guys have walked through the fire and they are better for it. Now, Calipari didn't want to place certainty on a postseason bid. He said, I don't know, I'm not in that room. But this win should secure Arkansas's place in the field of 68. Like we said, they were viewed as likely to be on the right side of the bubble even before the SEC tournament started. But now it adds another quad 2 win to their resume. And if they're able to upset Ole Miss today in Nashville, that would be another quad 1 win on their ledger. Arkansas currently with 5 of those quad 1 wins. But our buddy John Neighbors tweeted out, he said, look, Arkansas could win the SEC tourney, and there would still be people saying they need to get another win to get into the NCAA tournament. So, look, I think most people agree that they are in. And I've seen some people saying this, look, Arkansas should be one of the best feel-good stories of college basketball this year. They've been playing with 7 guys, winning basketball down the stretch of the year, and have had 2 of their best players out of the lineup. I saw one guy said, many want to bash or put down these kids and the coach for unknown reasons, but I hope they make a big run in March Madness. Another Arkansas fan brought up, look, this time last year, Eric Musselman was flirting with USC, left an empty roster. Arkansas talked with Chris Beard. They talked with Tang at Kansas State. And Cal has rebuilt programs before. And he's rebuilding this team, and look at where they are. Hogs are continuing to forge on without two of their more important players, Adu Thiero and Boogie Flan. And Calipari was asked if either guy has a shot to come back at all this season. He said, look, depends on how far we advance. Another reporter asked, could we see him maybe later this week in Nashville? He said, not in this tournament. We advance a couple of weeks, maybe. Jay Billis kind of had some fun on the ESPN broadcast yesterday. He talked about, South Carolina, they were the worst team in the SEC, 12-20 overall, 2-16 in the SEC. But he said South Carolina is likely the best last place team the SEC has seen. He said, I can't imagine we've ever seen a team in last place as good as South Carolina. I don't think there's ever been one. Carolina, if you remember, they did beat Clemson in overtime back in non-conference play, and they were looking somewhat decent. And then, conference play happened, and they fell off the face of the earth. But to me, you got to give John Calipari his roses for his coaching job here. I mean, even if you're a Kentucky fan, I think you got to admit, Cal had not had a lot of recent success in the SEC tournament. His past 5 seasons at Kentucky, I had to go look this up. In 24, Kentucky was 0-1 in the SEC tourney. In 23, Kentucky was 0-1 in the tourney. In 22, they were 1-1. They won a game, then lost. And the year before that, in 2021, they were 0-1. And of course, as we know, 2020 was the COVID year and we didn't have a tournament. But he's already tied his number of SEC tournament wins since 2021 at Kentucky in his first season in Arkansas. And if he wins today, well, it'll be the most wins for Cal in the SEC tournament in one season since 2018 when Kentucky won the SEC tournament. So I think you got to give him a lot of credit. And look at the job he's done. Dan Wolkin over at USA Today wrote a piece. He says, this is the best coaching job of John Calipari's career. You go back and look at his 33 years coaching at the college level. He said, think of it this way. If you're the fan of a number 6 seed and you see Arkansas pop up as your first round opponent, you might have some swear words come out of your mouth. He said, even though this Arkansas team isn't exactly a good team, there may not be a double-digit seed in the field with the potential to be as dangerous for any given 40-minute period. They've got front court size. They could beat you on the boards. They got the ability to get downhill off the dribble. They've got athletic wings. They got the experience of few key players, including one who's been in the Final Four, another one who's played in the Elite Eight. He said, of course, it's Calipari, who's in the rare position of entering the NCAA tournament with nothing to lose. And if you remember the last time that happened, it was 2014 when Kentucky left the SEC tournament as an underwhelming 8 seed and played for a national title 3 weeks later. Of course, anything can happen in March. This Arkansas team doesn't seem built for that kind of run, but you never know. And sometimes players step up and rise to the occasion. And, like we said, there's some rumblings that maybe they could get the arrow back and maybe this team could do some damage. But I do think it is worth arguing. Is this John Calipari's best coaching job yet? Look, we'll always think back to the national championship team he had at Kentucky and Anthony Davis and Terrence Jones and all those great players, like Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. I mean, he had incredible players that year. Some of those teams where he had, elite players like John Wall and Boogie Cousins. I mean, roll the basketball out and just let them go. But you look at this Arkansas roster and then put them behind the 8 ball like they did starting 0-5 in conference play. I think it's pretty damn impressive. And again, I've heard a lot of Kentucky fans who were celebrating when they were down 0-5 in the conference and not wanting to give them credit. I think you got to give Cal a lot of credit. This Arkansas team deserves a ton of credit for what they've been able to do here. And like we said, the gripe on Calipari the last few years at Kentucky was he couldn't win a tournament game. Well, or an SEC tournament game, and he won one already at Arkansas. Let's see if he can make it a second one, depending on when you're listening to this. Friday after or Thursday afternoon, they will play Ole Miss in the SEC tournament. Now, again, he's going to punch his ticket to the NCAA tournament. They're going to likely be an underdog to whoever they're paired up against. If he can win that, that's a whole nother gripe that Kentucky fans had, was his lack of success in the NCAA tournament in recent years. Remember St. Peter's, embarrassing loss. Remember Oakland last year, embarrassing loss. Your roster's filled with lottery picks, NBA lottery picks. Well, his last, ever since he was at Kentucky. So, look, If Calipari can get to the tournament and win a game, it's a successful year one at Arkansas, and he's going to build on this, right? Going to continue to recruit at a high level, see who he gets to the transfer portal, and if that program can get healthy next year, sky's the limit for what Calipari can do at Arkansas. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, Rodney Terry doing his best to save his job at Texas. There's already some talk of who could replace him, and some of the names are crazy. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a second. More Locked On SEC after this. But first, I want to remind you guys about our friends who make all this show possible. And I want to talk to you about our friends over at Monarch Money. If you've ever checked your bank account and you wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When you start Monarch, you realize just how much you spend on food delivery, and it'll make you want to budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. This episode also brought to you by our friends over at Factor. And look, Factor meals, it is the way to go. If you're looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. You will love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. If you try their Protein Plus meals, you will find they are packed with flavor and will keep you full throughout the day. The convenience is unbelievable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. And now you can eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off. Use our promo code LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnCollege50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off. Get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box with Factor Meals. All right, rolling along here, Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out each and every day. All right, we talked a little bit about the early game at the SEC tournament. How about the one that took place in the afternoon? The Texas Longhorns took care of business Wednesday afternoon in Nashville, dominating much of the game, withstood a late Vanderbilt rally, and won 79-72 in the opening round, keeping their NCAA tournament hopes alive. Vanderbilt just too late. They stunk it up for much of the game, turned it on late, but the deficit was just too big to overcome. Trey Johnson, the dynamic freshman for Texas, he bounced back in a big way. Remember, he went 0 for 14 from the field in their loss to Oklahoma in the regular season finale. He looked more like the SEC freshman of the year that he was named. 6 of 19 shooting, hit 3 of Texas's 4 3-pointers on the day. Tremont Mark at 19 points. And look, Texas did what they needed to do, and it was a good day. Texas entered the SEC tournament on the tournament bubble, and Joe Lunardi on Wednesday placed the Longhorns in the first 4-out category and said they would be out of chances to make the big dance with another loss. So one win may not be enough to make the field of 68. In fact, Joe Lunardi postgame, I think, said he had Texas as the number 69 team. So he literally has them as the first team out. But the Longhorns have a chance still at this to get it done. They will face in-state rival Texas A&M later this afternoon. Longhorns and Aggies split the Lone Star Showdown in January. A&M won 80-60. on January 4th, and then Texas won 70-69 January 25th in Austin. Aggies had a first-round bye, and they're the tournament's 5 seed. But the big question on a lot of people's minds is Rodney Terry. Will he be retained? Will he be the head coach of the Longhorns come 2025-2026? If you remember, Rodney Terry was the top assistant on Texas's teams under Chris Beard. And you remember when Chris Beard got let go after the whole allegations of abusing his wife and all that other stuff, Rodney Terry stepped in as the interim head coach and did a pretty good job. And so he got the full-time gig. And it's been a mixed bag so far as his run as head coach at Texas, but 21-13 last year, 9-9 in the Big 12, and then this year 18-14 overall, 6-12 in the SEC. Texas wants to play with the big boys in the SEC in just about every sport, and they are. Football's been dominant, women's basketball's been dominant. Of course, all the smaller sports, rowing, they do very well. Baseball's looking pretty good under Schlossnagle. So there's a lot of talk of, all right, should we upgrade here? Should we go get a big name? And Kirk Bowles from the Houston Chronicle wrote a piece yesterday saying that as of right now, the Texas brass would prefer to move on for Rodney Terry, even with a potential $20 million price tag, making the decision more difficult. He also said that athletic director Chris Del Conte already has a few potential replacements in mind. How crazy are those replacements? Well, listen to this list. This is from the article that Kirk Bowles wrote. He said, I can confirm that Chris Del Conte is more than a little enamored with NBA coaches like Quinn Snyder and Billy Donovan, as well as Arkansas's John Calipari, and would be happy with any of them to replace Rodney Terry. He says Quinn Snyder currently makes $8 million a year. Billy Donovan makes $6 million a year. And a source said neither has a buyout. And Calipari makes $7 million a year with a $6 million buyout at Arkansas. Again, those feel like massive swings for the fences. There's been even some talk of, would Jay Wright want to come out of retirement? Of course, the former Villanova coach who won titles there. There's been other talk. Would they go after Nate Oates? Yes, Nate Oates just got an extension at Alabama. He's got a buyout. But Texas is going to swing big for the replacement. Quinn Snyder, by the way, has been an NBA head coach since 2014. He's currently with the Atlanta Hawks. Of course, rised up head coach in Missouri in the early 2000s. Took him to 4 consecutive trips to the NCAA tournament, had an Elite 8 run. Billy Donovan, of course, the longtime head coach at Florida, led them to back-to-back national championships. Donovan's been rumored for several top basketball openings in recent years, and yet he always stays put in the NBA. So we shall see. This saga is not over, and as we continue to track the NCAA or the SEC tournament results, let's see what Texas does against A&M. It's a heated rivalry. Rodney Terry can pull out a win there. Man, it feels like it completely reverses fortune. You hate to put that on them, but it would mean that Texas does make the NCAA tournament. And if they do punch their ticket, who knows? Do they win a game in the tournament? If they do that, Rodney Terry's probably not going anywhere. So, depending on when you guys are listening to this podcast, watching this YouTube video, Rodney Terry coaching for his career, likely there at Texas, coming up later today. So, taking a look at the SEC tournament bracket, of course, Arkansas held off South Carolina. They will take on Ole Miss this afternoon. Texas beat Vanderbilt. They will take on Texas A&M. Mississippi State disposed of LSU. They will take on Missouri. And as of this recording, Oklahoma and Georgia currently in a tight game late in that one. So the winner of that takes on Kentucky. So those will be the games happening here on Thursday. And then, of course, on Friday, we'll get to see Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, and Alabama. And all those teams basically only have to win 2 games to get to the SEC championship game on Sunday. So should be some fun basketball going on these next couple of days. And of course, some great action in the first day of action. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC. Have you guys seen the new EA Sports NCAA 26 cover. It looks like it has been leaked. We will talk about that. Let you guys see that here in just a second. But first, I want to remind you guys about our friends over at TurboTax. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Well, now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. So also you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, and no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, one more segment here on Locked On SEC, and thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. If you guys saw on the internet yesterday, this kind of leaked out. It is a leaked cover of the deluxe edition cover of the College Football 26. Of course, everybody who got the video game this past year, College Football or NCAA College Football 25, they have supposedly leaked this cover. Now, players visible on the cover include a couple of guys from Ohio State, their freshman phenom wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, and safety Caleb Downs, who, of course, former Alabama safety Caleb Downs. But from the SEC, visible here, you could see Florida quarterback DJ Lagway, LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier, Alabama wide receiver Ryan Williams, and South Carolina edge rusher Dylan Stewart. So those are some good picks from the SEC. Now, some people may be saying, where's Arch Manning? He may have turned it down. Where's Nico Amaliava? He may have turned it down. So Nussmeier, DJ Lagway, Ryan Williams, Dylan Stewart. Other players on here, you got Penn State running back Nick Singleton, Arizona State quarterback Sam Leavitt, Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love. How about Michigan true freshman quarterback Bryce Underwood, who was basically an LSU commit for a year plus and then ends up at Michigan. But a little bit different here. They also have coaches on the cover. Ohio State's Ryan Day, Penn State's James Franklin, Arizona State's Kenny Dillingham, Ole Miss's Lane Kiffin, and Georgia's Kirby Smart. So 2 SEC coaches on the cover. And some people kind of saying this might be the sign that coaches will be included in the video game this year. Last year, coaches were not. Kiffin had said last year he would participate in the game for free if given the opportunity. The other things here, they got former players on the cover, including Reggie Bush, Denard Robinson, and former Florida legend Tim Tebow. They were all individual cover stars on previous editions of the game. And then the cover also includes some mascots from Clemson, Oregon, and Georgia, Tennessee, the Indiana flag, and then fans repping Texas and what appears to be Toledo, along with other schools. So the SEC very well represented. As Chris Vanini wrote, he said College Football 25 was the highest selling sports video game of all time in total dollars. It was reviewed well, and a lot of people hoping for some new features in this year's game, including perhaps the actual coaches' names in the video game. So it's a cool looking cover, but again, this is the deluxe edition where they got tons of faces on there. So who will be on just like the regular NCAA cover? I think, what was it, like only 4 or 5 cover athletes last year, whatever it was. So we'll see if they trim that down and who makes the cut. All right, a few other SEC tidbits here before we get out of here. Over at Georgia, Kirby Smart met with reporters this week and talked on a number of topics. He was asked about the possibility of Georgia adjusting their organizational chart this offseason, as many top programs are. He said Georgia has no plans to hire a general manager, instead describing player acquisition and development as a team effort on the staff. He also indicated he will continue to be heavily involved in certain aspects of the job that general managers are performing at other schools. He said, look, we got a lot of people in charge of our roster management, including myself, including our ops staff, our ops player development people, player personnel staff. Everybody gets involved in this. It's a team effort. He says, we've reorganized and restructured some things in terms of what falls under whose duty and whose aspects. But at the end of the day, I'm not ready to run off and go hire somebody that's just going to come in and make all the decision on what goes on here. Of course, insert joke of who's managing players speeding and that sort of thing. But time will tell if this is the smart decision, right? A lot of schools are hiring a general manager to come in and help, with revenue share and how much do we pay for this player? How much do we pay for this player? What's allocated on transfers? What's allocated money for recruits? All that kind of stuff. So we'll see if it works for Georgia. But look, Kirby's been doing a lot of things right since he's been there at Georgia. 2 national championships. Their record the last 4 years is, phenomenal overall. Made the playoff this year, just missed the playoff the year prior. Georgia did begin their spring practice this week. G-Day is set for April 12th. All right, one more tidbit before we get out of here. John Mateer, new quarterback at Oklahoma, he reportedly agreed to an NIL package worth around $3 million signing with Oklahoma this offseason. That's from a report from On3 Sports. Mateer was one of the top quarterbacks in this portal this cycle. Chose to follow his offense coordinator Ben Arbuckle from Washington State down to Norman. And it's worth noting Mateer's deal is not just for the 2025 season. According to Sooner Scoop, a $3 million figure would be what Mateer earns if he also stays and returns to Norman for his senior year in 2026. So if you take that into consideration, so what would it break down to? He's making $1.5 million a year, 1.5 mil this year, 1.5 mil next year. The NIL market for quarterbacks and other top players are obviously changing. Carson Beck reportedly got a $4 million deal to transfer from Georgia to Miami. But Oklahoma hoping that Mateer can be that big upgrade on the offense. Offense was a problem for Oklahoma last year. And Mateer threw for, 3,100 yards, 29 touchdowns. Also rushed for over 800 yards, 15 more rushing touchdowns at Washington State. He's a true dual threat. Really, really good player. And Oklahoma is hoping he is the guy that can get things back on track. We know Brent Venables and the defense are always going to be good. Can that offense get back on track? That's the big question for OU. By the way, we will have an interview with Sam Franklin in the coming days, current Oklahoma running back in a loaded backfield where they're hoping one or two guys will emerge from the bunch. We'll talk with Sam Franklin later this week about that. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen. Today, for your second listen, check out Locked On College Basketball with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here, so be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. You guys have a great day.